Hello and welcome to another skill of the week. This one is for first grade today. Hello first graders. We are going to be doing a crayon resist drawing, and it's actually a painting, but we're using crayon resist. Now the word resist, I meant to have my little paper over here. The word resist just means to push away. So we are using the crayon to push away at the watercolor so that the watercolor doesn't go into the areas that we put our crayon. So we have to put our crayon down really hard. So we're going to be doing an underwater scene. So all the things that we've been looking at, first graders, for underwater ideas, all the different colorful fish, the plant life, that kind of thing, that's what I want you to put on your picture. So I've drawn up an example, and I'm going to show you how to put the crayon on so that you can do your watercolor correctly. So let's see if this works. We're going to try this new technique I have again on putting my thing in a box. Let's see how that works. Okay, I think you can see this pretty good, hopefully, if there's enough light on it. Okay, so what you do is after you get everything drawn on there, and you want to make sure that you have your objects nice and large and they take up the space on the picture really well. You don't have to have a lot of things, but you do have to fill up the space. So what you want to do is you want to draw on your crayon line, on your pencil line, really dark with crayon. And you don't want any of the white of the paper to show through. So you really have to press hard with the crayon. And some of the crayons will break because you're pressing so hard, and that's normal. So see how dark that is? It's really, really dark. And use bright, colorful crayons. Now, normally I would say stay away from blue colors because we are going to paint this blue. But, if you use a turquoise or a purple color or something that's not the same color as our blue color, that's fine. Okay, and as long as you go really, really dark on it and you're pressing really hard with that crayon. Okay, so we're pressing down, outlining all of our objects. Notice that I'm not coloring anything in, I'm just outlining. And anywhere I see that I haven't gone over it dark enough, like if there are little fuzzy patches where the paper is showing through, then I need to go back over that, kind of maybe squiggle it back and forth and really press hard to get that to be really dark. I'm only going to go over a few things so that you can see and get an example. Like here I have a fan coral. Okay, I'm just going to go really dark. If you press hard enough, see I broke my crayon. If you press hard enough the first time, you won't have to go over it a second time. So really, really press down. And notice that I drew my lines really, really light because then it's easy to cover up my pencil lines with the crayon. If you draw really, really dark, then your pencil lines are going to show through the watercolor. Okay. Oop, boy, that crayon broke really fast. Just going over my pencil lines, and I'm not coloring anything in with pencil, and I'm not coloring anything in with crayon, just outlining. And you can make any kind of fish or animals you like. But remember that this is under the water, so we aren't going to see anything that would be above the water. We're not going to see a sun, we're not going to see a sky, we're not going to see a boat. So make sure that you are only drawing undersea creatures. And you'll see why I'm using all these bright colors that you wouldn't maybe normally see on fish. Because when I put my watercolor on there, it's going to really make those items pop forward and stand out really well. And your hand will get tired because you're pushing really hard. You might have to stretch your hand a little bit. I have to do that once in a while if I'm pushing really hard with a crayon or with a pencil. It's good to stretch your hands. And the more you go, or the longer you do it, the more tired your hand's going to get. So it's okay to take a break once in a while. But you really need to pay attention to pushing down hard on that crayon so that none of the white of the paper shows. See, an octopus is not really green, but I'm making it a bright green color because I want it to stand out. We're not going for perfectly realistic here. We're going for color and brightness and just all around it looking cool. Okay, I guess I did purple already. I think I could do, you can use a white crayon to do bubbles. Okay, so as long as you are pushing really hard, like if I have some bubbles coming behind this little fish here, you'll see those show up. You won't see them on the paper right to start, but you'll see them show up once you do your watercolor. And if you don't push hard enough, you'll see what that does with the watercolor too. And I'll give you one example when I'm done with all of these of how that will look if we don't press hard enough. And I'm really giving this some pressure, pushing down on the paper and with the edge of the crayon. I might just give this fish a couple of white stripes in there. You can't see them right now, but you'll see them once we do the watercolor. So giving my fish some little decorations on his fins and his tail, just to first to add some interest to the picture. Okay, now I did not go over these lines because I want you to see what they're going to look like when we do the watercolor. And I'm going to do one that's just kind of light. I didn't draw anything over here, but I'm just going to draw just a little fish right here. And I'm not going to go very dark with it at all. You can hardly even see it, okay? That's just to show you what's going to happen when I put the watercolor on. Okay, so when you do your watercolor, you're going to need your little tub of water, and you're going to need a really fluffy watercolor brush. Okay, this is super, super soft. And you're going to need your little watercolor tub of blue. So the first thing that you're going to do is get enough water in your brush to load it up, and we're going to just wipe some water into our blue so that you can see a little puddle happening in there. Okay, we almost want to fill that up and stir it around so it gets nice and moist, and we see just this little puddle of water happening inside of our watercolor container. Okay, so I'm going to move this water out of the way. And I'm rinsing out my brush right now. You can't see it because I'm trying to move things away so that we can do this. Okay, and I'm going to have this off camera, but I'm going to be dipping into it often. You'll see my brush go in and out of the picture. Actually, what I could do, let's try it this way, because this will probably work a little bit better, so that you can see how many times I dip my brush in the water. Okay, I'll have my container. Oops, I just spilled it. I'll have my container right here. Now, if a spill happens for you, just grab a paper towel and wipe it up. I'm not going to do that right now. You'll have your water right next to you and your container of watercolor, which I need to get a little bit more water in there now that I spilled it a little. And we're going to get a little water on the paper first, because we're going to do a wet into wet wash. And wet into wet just means you're putting wet watercolor on wet paper. You don't want to brush this too much, because you can do what's called scumbling and it'll tear your paper. But you want to make sure your paper is nice and wet and glistening with water. Can you see that glistening with water? Okay, it's shiny. And you don't want it to dry before you can get paint on it. So don't call me and say, Mrs. Howell, am I done? You need to, as soon as you get your water on there, dip into your blue watercolor and start painting across your paper. Okay, and we're going to fill that up with blue. You can see that I dip in there quite often, getting that blue, and then I'm going to just spread it across. The key to doing this is knowing when you're done. When you have it nice and blue, you're done. You don't do anything else. You can pick it up and let it drip if you want. Kind of let it ooze down the paper. See how it's oozing down the paper, and that'll get it kind of more even. But what that does, since I've colored my crayon so dark, is that the crayon resists the watercolor. Let me see if I can pull some of this off of there, because it's so thick that I can't show you. It's wanting to drip. So I'm just going to kind of push some of it off. Okay, so you can see that the bright areas of the crayon really stand out. Now you can see there are some areas maybe I didn't get it quite dark enough. The purple turned out really good. Most of the green did. But notice where that little fish is that was really light. You can't even see it, can you? So this goes to show you that you need to color really dark. Now here you can see I colored really dark, and then my pencil lines, they're just pencil lines. They don't show up at all. Okay? So all of your lines need to be really dark so that your fish really stand out. And we will put these on the drying rack and let them dry completely before we see them. So let's try that out, first graders. Bye-bye.